The United Nations Human Rights Council has agreed to temporarily hold off its consideration of a long-awaited report into alleged rights violations during the conflict in Sri Lanka for 6 months until September 2015. Explaining his difficult decision, Saeed Rad Al Hussein, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, said in a press release issued by his office that the deferral of the report was for the time only and guaranteed that the report would be published by September.
Saeed Rad Al Hussein, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, said, quote, "There should be no misunderstanding. I give my personal, absolute and unshakable commitment that the report will be published by September," unquote. He said that there are good arguments for sticking to the original timetable, and there are also strong arguments for deferring the report's consideration a bit longer, given the changing context in Sri Lanka and the possibility that important new information may emerge which will strengthen the report.
He says it's strictly one time, 6 months. We are bringing this in September. In the meantime, he has reason to believe that because it's a more relaxed atmosphere in the country, it will be possible to secure more information and present a tougher report in September. So he expects the doors to be wide open. He also says that the government has promised that a strong domestic judicial mechanism will be in place within the 6 months. In other words, the Sri Lanka government itself will investigate these war crimes allegations within the 6-month period. So there's a win-win scenario for the UN High Commissioner's office and a lose-lose scenario for Sri Lanka. It's not just Sri Lanka buying time for 6 months, it's the High Commissioner's office getting 6 months, buying 6 months for itself in order to get more evidence against us.
Meanwhile, last month, Jayantha Dhanapala, the senior advisor on foreign affairs to the President, met the High Commissioner for Human Rights. Characterizing his visit as an exploratory visit, Dhanapala briefed them on the policies of President Maithripala Sirisena and his government, and in that context sought a constructive engagement with the High Commissioner and the Human Rights Council in terms of the manifesto and the 100 days program of the new government. It was also in this backdrop that the Minister of Foreign Affairs Mangala Samaraweera on Friday the 13th of February met with the UN Secretary-General and pressed the government's desire to delay the release of the UN report on alleged war crimes during his country's civil war. During his visit, he also urged the international community to be patient and give Sri Lanka time and space while pledging the government's commitment to democracy and the protection of human rights.
The government of Sri Lanka has options that it has not exercised. And the new government can credibly tell Prince Zayed that it will implement the recommendations of the Lessons Learned Commission and nothing more. The LLRC report identifies a few specific incidents and urges an independent local investigation. Now that is what the government of Sri Lanka, especially the foreign minister, must tell High Commissioner Zayed, this is what we are going to do. This was in our LLRC report. We are not going beyond that. And if there is an attempt to bring this report or a stronger and fuller version of this report in 6 months, the government of Sri Lanka must very clearly say that now that we have rectified our relationship with India, we shall secure once again, as we did in 2009, the support of the region, the continent, the third world, and we shall resist any imposition of any such report.
Under the previous regime, the entire judicial system was suppressed by the regime. In Chilau, Ratupasula and Valiveria, they opened fire on people protesting for just reasons. In Vaunia and Valikada, prisoners were murdered. Thereby, the previous regime had created a very dangerous situation in our country with regard to democracy and human rights. It is this situation that chiefly prompted the United Nations to conduct an investigation into our country with regard to the violation of democracy and human rights. The postponement of this report presents an opportunity to initiate reform reforms in our country to ensure democracy and human rights. But as a country, the current regime has a responsibility to ensure democracy and human rights. The UN Human Rights Commission must withdraw this report completely, and at the same time, the present regime must investigate violations of human rights and democracy in our country and take steps to ensure that such violations do not occur again. The door that has been opened now presents an opportune moment to strengthen democracy and human rights in our country. The government must not let go of that opportunity for any reason.
රජය එම අවස්ථාව කිසිසේත්ම පැහැර හැරිය නොයුතුයි.